I can't stop shaking. It's like the air in this house is different now, heavy, thick with a coldness that won't let me breathe. Maybe I'm crazy for even trying to write it all down, but I have to. If I don't, I know I'll forget. I'll forget something crucial, something important, that could keep this darkness from claiming me, from claiming us all. It started with a quiet sort of sadness. It was my mother's sadness, at first. I didn't even notice it when I was younger. I thought it was just her way. She was always a little distant, a little off. But then, after everything that happened, I began to see it for what it was. A sadness that had been passed down through generations, one that no one had ever acknowledged. Not until it was too late. I still don't know why she started looking through those old journals. She never mentioned them before, and the way she spoke of them afterward, it was like she was trying to erase them from her memory, but the more she tried, the more it pulled her in. The journals had been hidden for so long. My father had told her to burn them. He said they were cursed, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. And so they stayed, tucked away beneath the floorboards of the house we'd moved into when I was little. I don't even know if my mother ever believed in the curse, or if it was just a story she thought she had to pass on. But I didn't believe in curses back then. I couldn't. It was just a family legend, something to scare children into behaving. I never thought the horrors that haunted the past could reach into the present, could claw their way into our home, into my life. I wish I'd been able to stay ignorant. I wish I'd never opened that door. It was a rainy evening when everything began. I'd returned home late from a study session with my friends, just like any other day. But when I stepped inside, the house felt wrong. My mother had always been a quiet woman, but tonight she was silent in a way that made the air feel suffocating. Her face was pale, drawn. She looked like she hadn't slept for days. I asked her what was wrong. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were focused on something I couldn't see, something that had pulled her attention away from me completely. The kitchen light flickered as she continued to stare at the floor, her thin fingers curling around the edge of a yellowed, leather-bound book. "Where did you find that?" I whispered, dread creeping into my chest. I knew the answer before she spoke. "My mother's," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She kept it hidden. The book, one of those journals my father had warned her about, was a collection of cryptic writings and drawings. I could barely make sense of any of it, but the language was strange, ancient. It was written in a way that felt as if it had been intended to keep its meaning from prying eyes, from anyone who might understand the danger. I don't want you looking at that," I said, my voice trembling, but my mother only shook her head slowly, a tear slipping down her cheek. She had a look in her eyes that I had never seen before, not even when I was a child. She was afraid. I could see it now, so clearly, but it wasn't fear of something ordinary. It was the kind of fear you could only feel when you knew something was coming for you, something dark and inescapable. Then, she handed me the book, her hands shaking. She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "Anna," she said softly, her voice cracking. You need to know what happened to our family." And that's how it began. That's how I found out about the rituals, the ceremonies, the bloodlines bound to something ancient. I can't even bring myself to say the word. It was never supposed to have been uncovered. Not after all these years. I didn't read the whole thing at first. How could I? But the words, the few I did see, they felt like they were reaching out, clawing at my soul. I felt something move inside of me when I read them. A stirring, like the earth beneath my feet shifting ever so slightly. The more I read, the more I felt something deep inside myself stirring, too. An anger, a hunger, something, alive. It wasn't until later, after that night, that the dreams began. And that's when I understood, I had no choice but to find out what had been awakened. But I didn't understand the cost. I didn't understand the price of knowledge. That first night was almost like a dream itself. I was lying in bed, the sheets tangled around me, and the darkness outside my window felt thick, suffocating. I don't remember when I fell asleep. But the moment I closed my eyes, the nightmares began. It wasn't a single dream. It was a sequence of images, a broken film reel, playing over and over again. The same scenes. The same faces. But they were twisted. They were wrong. I saw my grandmother, the one I never met, standing in a circle of candles, her face frozen in an expression of something terrible. I could hear whispers, but I couldn't make out the words. And then, the image changed, shifting to my mother as a little girl, her eyes wide with terror. She was alone in a room, the door locked tight, and a shadow stretched across the floor, creeping toward her, and then it was me. A younger version of myself, running through the woods, as if being chased by something I couldn't see. I could hear the whispers again, growing louder, more urgent. And then, a voice, low, guttural, a thing from the depths of nightmares, whispered in my ear, "You were always meant to return." I woke up gasping for air, my heart pounding in my chest. The days that followed were a blur of fear. I could no longer walk through their house without feeling its weight, like something was always watching me. My mother's strange behavior continued, and she seemed to drift further away with each passing day. My father, who had always been the rational one, was suddenly silent, distant. I had to find out what it all meant. I had to know what these dreams were trying to tell me, but the more I searched, the more dangerous it became. I knew that, even if I uncovered the truth, there was no going back. And deep down, a part of me was terrified that I was already too far gone, but I didn't have a choice anymore, and now I'm trapped, both in my own mind and in this house that holds the curse of our ancestors. I can feel it in the walls and in the air. I can feel the thing waiting for me, waiting for my next move, its fingers already brushing against the edges of my thoughts. I don't have much time left. It's only been a few weeks since I opened that book, and already, everything I knew about the world has begun to crack and splinter. At first, I told myself that if I just ignored it, if I stayed away from the old journals, it would all go away. That whatever cursed thing had taken hold of my mother wouldn't affect me. But I was wrong. I was so horribly wrong. The dreams, they are getting worse now. They are no longer just images that flash in the night. They are real. I can feel them, feel the presence of something pressing in from all sides. The shadows have become more than just dark corners in my room, they've become the walls themselves, crawling up from the floorboards and wrapping around my body, tightening like ropes, suffocating. I've stopped sleeping altogether. Every time I close my eyes, the whispers start. The chanting. It's a language I don't recognize, but somehow, I understand. The words worm their way into my thoughts, wrapping around my brain until I can't think of anything else. It's the same message over and over: you must finish the circle. And each time, I wake up drenched in sweat, terrified I won't be able to get away, but I have no choice now. I can't run anymore. I have to find out what it all means. I'm sitting in my bedroom, the dim light from the desk lamp casting long shadows across the floor. The house is eerily quiet, except for the occasional creak of the floorboards as the house settles. My mother's room is just down the hall, and I know she's there, though I haven't seen her in days. She's become a ghost. She never speaks anymore. She just sits, her gaze fixed on some point beyond the walls, her hands trembling as she clutches the journal. Father is gone. He left a few days ago, without a word. I don't know if he's coming back. It's like he's been swallowed by the house, just like everything else. The only sound I hear now is the quiet hum of the house, but even that feels wrong, like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I should have never gone back to the journal. But something pulled me to it, something inside me, like a compulsion. And when I opened it this time, the pages seemed different. The ink was darker. The words, they weren't the same. They were growing more legible, clearer, as if someone was guiding my hand across the pages, telling me exactly what to do. There were pictures this time. Drawings of symbols that made no sense, drawn in jagged lines that seemed to pulse as I looked at them. The more I stared at them, the more I felt that pull, the feeling that if I just understood them, I could finally escape the nightmare. But with every answer, there were more questions. I've copied them down here, the best I can. My hand is shaking as I write, but I have to get it out. I have to make sense of what's happening to us. Maybe if I understand it, I can stop it. The first thing I noticed was the name, Erebos. It wasn't in English, not really. It was like a language that twisted around your tongue, making your mouth feel foreign when you said it. But it kept repeating, over and over in the journal, like a chant. Erebos. A name that felt ancient, like it had been whispered for centuries, buried deep beneath the earth, in the blood of my ancestors. Then there were the rituals. The details, so precise, so cold, struck me harder than anything else. The way they spoke of sacrifices, of blood, of binding the soul to something far beyond our comprehension. The more I read, the more I felt the words burn into my skin. This wasn't just some twisted family myth. This was real. Erebos was real, the rituals, there were many of them. The journal detailed 7 steps, each one more sinister than the last, a series of actions that would allow those who followed them to call upon the true darkness. It was an invocation, a way to open the door to something powerful, something ancient, something that should never have been disturbed. I read about the bloodlines, the ancient connections that tied my family to this thing, to Erebos. My great-grandfather had performed the final ritual, the one that sealed the curse, trapping it in the walls of this house. The others, the ones who had followed, had paid the price for their arrogance, their ambition. They'd thought they could control it. But you can't control something like this. Not once it's been let loose. And my mother. I can't stop thinking about her. She's the key. The journal says that each generation is marked, chosen. The bloodline. My bloodline. I thought it was a curse she carried, something passed down through generations. But now, I know the truth. It's not a curse. It's a debt. A contract made in the darkness, signed in blood. And my mother, she's been trying to keep it from me, from all of us, but I can feel it, feel the weight of it. It's suffocating us. We can't run from it. I hear the floorboards creak again. This time, it's closer. The house isn't just alive with whispers anymore, it's moving, shifting, as if it's breathing. The walls are too thin. I can hear my mother now, her voice, low and urgent, as if she's speaking to someone, or something, just beyond the door. I stand up from the desk, my legs unsteady, and I walk toward the door. The temperature in the hall is colder than it should be. It's like I've stepped into an icebox. The air is thick, like it's been trapped here for years, suffocating in the dark. I reach the door to my mother's room and stop, my hand hovering over the knob. The whispering has grown louder, almost frantic, as if the walls themselves are calling out to me. Something's wrong. I don't know what, but I can feel it in my bones. I open the door. She's sitting on the floor, surrounded by candles. The room smells like burnt wax, like something that's been smoldering for hours. Her eyes are wide, unfocused, staring at something I can't see. Her fingers twitch, but she doesn't move otherwise. She's just waiting. I try to speak, but my throat is dry. I can barely get the words out. Mom, what are you doing? What's happening? She doesn't respond. She just keeps staring at the floor. But then, she reaches for something beside her, a knife, long and thin, with an old, worn hilt. My heart stops. The knife gleams in the dim light, its blade reflecting the faint glow of the candles. She holds it up. Her hand is trembling, and that's when I realize, she's not alone. There's something else in the room with us. Something I can't see, but I can feel it. A presence. Cold, heavy, like a stone pressing against my chest. It's here. It's waiting, and in that moment, I understand. The curse isn't just a thing of the past. It's alive. It's awake. And it wants us back. The room feels suffocating now. I can't breathe. The air is thick with dread, with a presence I can't see but can feel crawling across my skin like the coldest of hands. My heart is pounding in my chest, threatening to tear me apart, and yet I stand frozen in place, unable to move or speak. The knife gleams in my mother's trembling hand, and her eyes, those once familiar eyes, are empty now. Hollow. As if whatever soul had inhabited them has already been claimed by something else. I thought that if I could just reach her, if I could snap her out of whatever trance she was in, I could stop this nightmare that has been consuming her. But in the back of my mind, something tells me it's already too late. She's already gone, and the thing standing in front of me is not my mother. I take a step forward, Mom, please. But the sound of my voice only seems to make her stir, as if I've disturbed something ancient, something that has been waiting for this moment for centuries. She slowly turns her head toward me, and when she speaks, it's not her voice. It's deeper. Heavier. It echoes with something unnatural. Anna, their voice croaks, distorted. You were always meant to return. I stumble backward, my legs giving out beneath me. The wall catches me, but I don't care. The room seems to tilt, spin, as though the floor itself is no longer solid. And then the darkness begins to creep in from the corners of the room, swirling around my mother, around the candles. The shadows coil and stretch, like tendrils reaching toward me. Hungry. I've seen these shadows before, seen them in the dreams that have plagued me, the ones that clawed their way into my thoughts, whispered of Erebos. The name that has now settled deep inside me, like a poison. I know what I have to do. I don't know how I know, but I do. This is the last step. The final circle. I was always meant to be here. I was always meant to finish it, the journal had said as much. I had read about the bloodlines, the promises made, the way my ancestors had brought this thing into the world, this demon, this god, whatever it was. I had read about the ritual that had been performed, the 7 steps to open the door. But they had made a mistake. They thought they could trap it, keep it in the walls of this house, but they didn't understand. They didn't know that there's no such thing as containment. There is only release, and now it's my turn. The darkness pulses in the room, like a heartbeat, deep, rhythmic, and unyielding. It feels like it's coming for me, pulling me into its depths. I can hear the whispers, louder now, each word sharper than the last. They are chanting in that same language, the same words I've been hearing in my dreams. You must finish the circle. I look down at the floor, at the old symbols I've copied from the journal. They are etched into the wood, burned into the very foundation of this house. The symbols are glowing faintly, pulsing in time with the darkness, as though they are alive, waiting. I see now that they were never meant to protect me. They were meant to draw me in. I feel the pull, the compulsion. It's like something is whispering inside me, urging me to move, to complete the ritual. My fingers tremble as I reach for the knife my mother is holding. The cold steel feels like fire against my skin. When my hand touches the blade, my mother's eyes snap to me, and for a moment, I see the woman I once knew, the woman who cared for me, who raised me. And for that split second, I think maybe I can save her. Maybe I can break whatever hold has gripped her, but it's only for a moment. The thing inside her is stronger. Finish it, Anna, she whispers, her voice breaking like glass. You've always known what must be done. And then I understand. There's no escaping it. There's no redemption. The darkness that has followed us, that has haunted our family for generations, it's here to stay. It's been feeding off us, feeding off our fear, our blood, our souls. And now, it wants me to join it. To complete the circle, the knife feels like an extension of my own body now, the weight of it pressing into my palm as though it belongs to me. It's not just a tool, it's the key. The key to everything. I know what I have to do. I know what I must offer. The bloodline must be completed, the promise fulfilled, but even as I hold the knife over my chest, ready to end it all, I hear something, someone, calling my name, Anna. It's not my mother's voice. It's not the thing in her body. It's a voice I know well, one that sends a shiver down my spine. My father. His back. I glance toward the doorway, and there he stands, silhouetted in the dim light from the hall, his face gaunt, his eyes wild with panic. His mouth opens, but no words come out. His gaze flicks to the knife in my hand, then to my mother, still sitting on the floor, her eyes wide and unblinking. It's too late. I look back at the knife. The cold metal is now warm against my skin. I close my eyes, and in that instant, I feel the darkness rise, filling every corner of the room, pressing in on me until there's nothing but it, and then, in that final, terrible moment, I understand the truth. I am not meant to stop this. I never was. This has always been the end. Our end. I open my eyes, and I step forward. I plunge the knife into my chest. It doesn't hurt, not at first. There's no pain, just a deep, gnawing emptiness. A vast, consuming darkness that fills every inch of my body. I hear my father scream, but it's far away. I hear him calling my name, begging me to stop, but I don't. I can't. The darkness wraps around me like a shroud, pulling me deeper, and I finally understand. It's not just my bloodline. It's my soul. I am the final piece, the last thread that must be severed to let Erebos through, to open the door completely. I am the final sacrifice. I feel it then, the weight of it. The moment the circle is complete. The moment the last barrier falls. The world shifts, and everything fades, and then, nothing.